Hey everyone, this is Jeff Rout with Alberta Freedom, and I want to talk about the new budget for 2017 that the federal government just unveiled today. But there's a lot to go on this budget, and the very first thing that really strikes us is this deficit. Look at that, $28.5 billion. That's massive. This is a real big deficit that's just going to add on to our already massive amount of debt in Ottawa. All right, now they do talk about how the trends, the deficits gradually decline. I'm just going to check that out here because it's not that impressive. So this is the decline that they're talking about. At the end, we still have a huge deficit of about $18 billion. So they're talking about going down from $28 billion to $18 billion in deficit spending each year. They just cannot balance the books. They cannot get the revenue that they earn to exceed the costs that they're spending, the amount of money that they're spending. So they're spending money that they don't have that adds to our debt. Now, that debt has to be paid eventually. And who gets to pay it? Future taxpayers. Most likely not you and me. Most likely it's going to be our children. So this is debt that we're giving to our children. So what are some of the highlights on this budget? Well, one thing also is the deficit of $8.4 billion in capital spending is going to be pushed forward to 2035. Look at that, 18 years in the future. So that's actually, even though I'm criticizing this government for not balancing the books, this is not a subject that should be cut. This is very serious. This is quite literally life and death for those people. And if we think that we've seen the end of conflicts and that we don't need this, well, I don't think that's very honest. One thing we can note by this is that there's not a lot of benefit that we're seeing from it. So we're seeing $28.5 billion in deficit, but where are we seeing anything near that amount of money in benefit? The biggest one that comes out immediately is $11.2 billion, but this is over 11 years. It was already budgeted. So that's $1 billion a year. Where is this $28 billion going? We're giving them this much money and we're getting this much debt. How are we getting any benefit back from this amount of money? Ottawa's inability to manage money has been a constant throughout our history. There are a lot of reasons for this. One of them is it's the best way to get elected. We can't solve this problem by sending people who are better with money to Ottawa. The system favors those who will spend money frivolously. The reason is when a politician is trying to get elected, they just promise to give out tax money. They promise to take money from one person and give it to another with no expectation of repayment. People who are going to get the money, they like that. Try to promise money to as many people as possible, and they'll vote for you. And that's it. The system encourages that. You cannot solve this by sending people who are better with money to Ottawa. And our history shows that. Just look at these massive deficits. And the biggest one it was Pierre Trudeau with the equivalent today of $77 billion. That's in 2015 dollar money. That's massive. It is massive. So Ottawa always spends more money than it earns. It always has. So one thing of note of this budget is that it includes a one-time payment of $30 million to the government of Alberta to support provincial actions that will stimulate economic activity and employment in Alberta's resource sector. Boy, that sure sounds nice, doesn't it? That finally Alberta's going to get some money from the federal government. But really, this is nothing but lip service. This is completely ineffectual. And here are a few reasons why it's ineffectual. The GDP of Alberta is $360 billion. $30 million is equal to 1/12,000th of our GDP. They think that's going to stimulate our economy and get us back on the road? You think that's going to jumpstart us? What rubbish. Also, don't think that this is in any way generous of the federal government to be giving us this $30 million. Remember, Ottawa takes $30 billion more out of the Alberta economy than it puts back into the Alberta economy. So out of all of the taxation, all the gross taxation that they send out of Alberta in the form of income tax, corporate tax, royalties, etc., that is greater by $30 billion than what it sends back to Alberta in the forms of CPP payments, federal expenditures, military bases, military personnel, federal employees, federal buildings. So they remove $30 billion more out of our economy than they put back in. That is 1,000 times more. So they are giving us back 1/1,000th of what they take from us. 1/1,000th. You think that's generous? So this money is lip service. It will not do a thing to stimulate economic activity in Alberta, and it is a small percentage of what they take from us. Ottawa is a net taker. They are a net liability, and they always have been. To recap, Ottawa is always going increasingly in debt. It always has been, and it always will. The system encourages it. It doesn't matter if we send better people to Ottawa or not, because they will never be able to maintain their position if they don't play this game. Alberta should remove as much control over our money as possible from Ottawa. We should immediately opt out of the CPP, the Canada Pension Plan, and replace it with an Alberta pension plan. We want to manage our own pensions. We don't want Ottawa doing it because they cannot manage money. This is entirely constitutional, and Quebec has already done it. Quebec has opted out of the CPP and they have their own pension plan. We should have the exact same powers that Quebec has. We should opt out of the CPP, replace it with an Alberta pension plan. It has a few benefits. Firstly, it means that our pensions will be managed by us instead of Ottawa. And, if we control it for ourselves, it's much more likely that it'll be there when we actually need it. It also means that we'll be transferring jobs. So instead of paying for jobs right now in Eastern Canada, we'll set up those jobs in Alberta. So that's more jobs in Alberta with no extra costs, no extra taxes, because you're paying for pension management already. But instead of paying for it in Ontario or in Quebec, we'll pay for it here in Alberta. That's one way we can immediately keep more money in Alberta. We can immediately remove some power that Ottawa has over our finances, and we can have control over our own future. That's one solution to this, but there's more, and I'll go over those in some more detail in some more videos. This is our very first screen capture cast, and I plan to do some more like this in the future, but I'll probably be doing more in a video format instead of just staring at a screen. Thanks so much, everyone. I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to talking to you later. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them. Bye.